My daughter sent me a message that made my blood run cold. "Don't bother showing up to my wedding, Mom. Ethan doesn't want you there." I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I picked up my phone and made a single call that would change everything. But let me start from the beginning, because this story isn't just about a wedding. It's about a mother's intuition, a daughter's betrayal, and the moment I realized that sometimes love means fighting dirty. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. My name is Catherine Wells, and I'm 58 years old. I've spent the last 26 years of my life building something I thought was unshakable, a bond with my daughter, Lily. After my husband Marcus died in a construction accident when Lily was just 9, I became everything to her. Mother, father, best friend, protector. I worked as a senior accountant at a logistics firm during the day, and I took on freelance bookkeeping projects at night. Every dollar I earned went into two places: our modest but comfortable life and Lily's future. Saving relentlessly, I invested carefully. I learned everything I could about financial planning, wealth management, building security from nothing. By the time Lily graduated with her degree in graphic design from Portland State University, I had built a substantial nest egg of nearly $400,000, a diversified investment portfolio worth another $200,000, and a trust fund that would mature when she turned 32, with a value of approximately $500,000. I had worked myself to exhaustion for years, skipping vacations, driving old cars, wearing the same clothes, season after season, all so my daughter would never feel the financial terror I'd felt when Marcus died and left us with almost nothing. Lily and I were close, or at least I thought we were. She'd call me every few days, sometimes just to chat about a new coffee shop she'd discovered or a difficult client at her design studio. We'd have brunch every other Sunday at this little French cafe near her apartment in Portland, a place called Maison Lavande, where they made these incredible almond croissants that Lily loved. She'd tell me about her life, her dreams, her frustrations with freelance work, her hopes of eventually opening her own design agency. I was her sounding board, her safe place, her biggest cheerleader. When she told me she'd met someone, I was genuinely happy for her. Lily had dated casually through college and her early 20s, but nothing serious. She'd always been focused on building her career, establishing herself professionally before diving into a serious relationship. So when she called me one evening, her voice bubbling with excitement about this amazing guy she'd met at a networking event, I felt nothing but joy for her. His name was Ethan Cross, 29 years old, same as Lily. He worked in tech sales for a company called Vertex Solutions, or so he said. When Lily first described him, she used words like charming, ambitious, sophisticated, successful. She told me he drove a luxury car, lived in a nice apartment in the Pearl District, took her to expensive restaurants. "He really has his life together, Mom," she'd said. "He's not like the other guys I've dated. He has goals, plans for the future." I was happy for her, truly. My daughter deserved someone who had their act together, someone who could match her drive and ambition. But I also made a mental note to meet this Ethan soon, to see for myself what kind of man had captured my daughter's heart so completely. That meeting came about 4 months into their relationship. Lily invited me to dinner at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. She was nervous, I could tell. She kept fidgeting with her napkin, checking her phone, reapplying her lipstick in the compact mirror. "He's going to love you, Mom," she assured me. "And you're going to love him." Ethan arrived 15 minutes late, breezing in with apologies about a client call that ran over. My first impression was that he was handsome in a very calculated way. Perfectly styled dark hair, with just enough product to look effortless. Expensive suit that fit impeccably. A watch that I recognized as a Rolex Submariner, worth at least $15,000. Bright white teeth that had definitely been professionally whitened. He had the kind of smile that looked practiced in a mirror. "Catherine, so wonderful to finally meet you," he said, taking my hand in both of his in a gesture that felt overly familiar. "Lily talks about you constantly. You're clearly such an important person in her life. A.M. Strom." P. Strom. We sat down and ordered. That's when I started noticing things. Small things that individually seemed innocent, but collectively formed a pattern that made me uneasy. When the server asked Lily what she wanted to drink, Ethan answered before she could. "She'll have a Pinot Grigio, the one from Oregon." Lily hesitated for just a fraction of a second, then nodded. But I knew my daughter. She'd never been a white wine drinker. She preferred red, specifically Merlot. When the conversation turned to Lily's childhood, Ethan interjected frequently with corrections. "No, babe, you told me you lived on Maple Street, not Oak Street," he'd say, even though I knew for a fact we'd lived on Oak Street for 12 years. Or, "Actually, Catherine, Lily mentioned she was on the volleyball team, not the basketball team." Lily had never played volleyball in her life. She'd been on the basketball team all through high school. Each time Ethan corrected her, Lily would pause, look confused, then defer to his version. "Oh, maybe you're right," she'd say quietly. It was subtle, but it was there. The undermining of her own memories, her own experiences. Then came the most telling moment. When our entrees arrived, Lily had ordered the chicken piccata, but the server brought her grilled salmon instead. "Oh, I think there's been a mistake," Lily started to say, but Ethan cut her off smoothly. "No mistake, babe. You said you wanted the salmon, remember? You changed your mind at the last minute." Lily looked confused. "I did? Yeah, you said the chicken sounded too heavy. The salmon's a better choice anyway. More protein, fewer calories." I watched my daughter look down at a plate of food she hadn't ordered, food she was actually allergic to, and instead of insisting on the correction, she just picked up her fork. I intervened immediately. "Lily's allergic to fish," I said firmly, catching the server's attention. "She's been allergic since she was 7. We need the chicken she originally ordered." Ethan's smile never wavered, but something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance, maybe, or anger that I'd interfered. "Oh man, I totally forgot about the allergy," he said with a laugh. "My bad." "Good catch, Catherine. But I didn't believe in. He'd been dating my daughter for 4 months. How do you forget that your girlfriend is allergic to an entire category of food? Unless you'd never actually listened when she told you. Or worse, you deliberately ordered something she couldn't eat to make her seem difficult or high maintenance when she had to send it back." The rest of the dinner continued in the same vein. Ethan dominated the conversation, steering it constantly back to himself and his accomplishments. His sales numbers, his company's growth, the condo he was planning to buy, the investments he was making. When I asked him about his family, his background, he was vague. "My parents are retired, living in Arizona. We're not super close. I'm more focused on building my own future than dwelling on the past." When I asked about his interests outside of work, he gestured to Lily. "This one keeps me pretty busy," he said with a wink. "Between work and spending time with her, I don't have much time for hobbies. Though I do like to golf when I can. Great for networking." Everything came back to work. Money, success, image. There was no depth to him, no genuine curiosity about the world, no real passion for anything except advancement and acquisition. And yet, Lily looked at him like he hung the moon. After dinner, as we said our goodbyes on the sidewalk, Ethan shook my hand again with that overly familiar two-handed grip. "Catherine, it was such a pleasure. I can see where Lily gets her intelligence and strong personality. You raised an amazing daughter." The compliments felt hollow, performative, like he'd calculated exactly what a mother would want to hear. As I drove home that night, I felt deeply unsettled. I couldn't articulate exactly what was wrong, but my instincts were screaming that something about Ethan Cross was off. Very off. I told myself I was being overprotective, that I needed to give him a chance, that all mothers probably felt this way when their daughters started getting serious with someone. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. Over the next few months, I watched as subtle changes crept into Lily's life. She started canceling our Sunday brunches. The first time, she said she and Ethan had been invited to a friend's beach house for the weekend. The second time, Ethan had surprised her with tickets to a concert. The third time, she was just too exhausted from a big project at work and needed to rest. Each excuse was reasonable on its own, but together they formed a pattern of increasing distance. Her phone calls became less frequent. When she did call, conversations felt strained, like she was checking items off a list rather than genuinely connecting. "How are you?" "Fine." "How's work?" "Good." "How's Ethan?" "Great." Everything was surface level, no depth, no real sharing. And there was often noise in the background, the television, music, sometimes Ethan's voice. I realized she was never calling me when she was alone anymore. Now onward to the next part. I started noticing changes in how she spoke too. She used different words, phrases that didn't sound like her. She'd say things like, "We're really focused on optimizing our time," or "We're being strategic about our social investments." These were Ethan's words, his corporate speak, coming out of my daughter's mouth. It was like watching her personality slowly being overwritten. Then, there were the concerning moments when I did see her. We met for coffee one afternoon in October, about 7 months into her relationship with Ethan. Lily looked tired, thinner than usual. She'd always been slender, but now her collarbones jutted out prominently, and her clothes hung loose on her frame. When I commented on it, she brushed it off. "Ethan and I have been eating healthier," she said. "He's really into fitness and nutrition. We've cut out a lot of processed foods, refined sugars, most carbs. I feel so much better." But she didn't look better. She looked exhausted and diminished. I ordered us each a pastry with our coffee, those almond croissants she used to love. She stared at hers like it was a live grenade. "I really shouldn't," she said quietly. "Ethan says I need to watch my carb intake." "Ethan isn't here," I pointed out gently, "and you're an adult who can make her own food choices." She picked at the croissant, eating maybe 3 small bites before wrapping the rest in a napkin. "I'll save it for later," she said, but I saw her throw it in the trash on our way out. Another time, we were supposed to meet for lunch. Lily was 20 minutes late, which wasn't like her. She was usually punctual to a fault. When she finally arrived, she was flustered and apologetic. "I'm so sorry, Mom. Ethan called right as I was leaving, and we got into this whole thing about weekend plans. He wants to visit his friend in Seattle, but I have a client deadline, and it just became this whole discussion." "Discussion or argument?" I asked. She looked uncomfortable. "I mean, we weren't fighting exactly. He just has strong opinions about how I manage my time. He thinks I work too much and don't prioritize our relationship enough." Which, maybe he's right. I've been really focused on work. "Lily, you're building a business. Of course you're focused on work. That's not a character flaw." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Ethan says I use work as an excuse to avoid intimacy, that I'm afraid of real commitment, so I hide behind my career." I felt anger rising in my chest. Did a man you've been dating for less than a year really just armchair psychoanalyze you and suggest you have commitment issues? Lily's defenses went up immediately. "He's not wrong, Mom. I do tend to prioritize work over relationships. It's something I need to work on." "Or," I said carefully, "you're a driven, ambitious woman building a career, and any partner worth having should support that rather than criticize it." She changed the subject after that, and we didn't discuss Ethan again for the rest of lunch. But I left that meal feeling even more concerned. He was undermining her confidence, making her doubt herself, reframing her strengths as weaknesses. I started doing quiet research. Nothing invasive, just basic internet searches. Ethan Cross's digital footprint was surprisingly sparse. He had a LinkedIn profile that listed his position at Vertex Solutions, but when I clicked through to the company website, I couldn't find him in their employee directory. His Facebook was locked down, private settings. His Instagram showed the expected images. Expensive dinners, nice cars, luxury lifestyle, but always alone or with Lily. No friends, no family, no history. I found that odd. Most people in their late 20s have digital histories going back a decade or more. Photos from college, old friend groups, family gatherings, evidence of a life lived before the present moment. Ethan's online presence seemed to begin about 3 years ago, and even then, it was curated and superficial. I told myself I was overthinking it. Not everyone is active on social media. Some people value privacy. But combined with everything else, the sparse digital footprint felt like another piece of a troubling puzzle. Then came Thanksgiving. Lily and I had always spent Thanksgiving together, just the two of us, since Marcus died. It was our tradition. We'd cook together, watch the parade, eat too much pie, and spend the evening playing board games and talking. I looked forward to it every year. But in mid-November, Lily called with news. "Mom, I hope you won't be upset, but Ethan and I have decided to go to Arizona for Thanksgiving. His parents really want to meet me. And since it's getting serious between us, we thought it would be good to make the trip." I swallowed my disappointment. "Of course, honey. That makes sense. You should meet his parents." "You're sure you're okay?" she asked, and I could hear the guilt in her voice. "You won't be alone?" "I'll be fine," I assured her. "Patricia already invited me to join her family. I'll have plenty of company." That was a lie. Patricia had invited me, but I'd declined, expecting to spend Thanksgiving with Lily as always. But I didn't want to guilt my daughter into choosing me over Ethan's family. Thanksgiving came and went. I spent it alone in my house, eating takeout Chinese food and trying not to feel sorry for myself. Lily sent a brief text. "Happy Thanksgiving, Mom, at Ethan's parents' house. They're wonderful. Love you." No phone call. No details. Just a quick text. When she returned from Arizona, I asked her about the trip. "It was good," she said vaguely. "His parents are nice. His dad's retired military, very disciplined. His mom was a little intense, lots of questions. But they seemed to like me." I pressed for more details, but she didn't offer much. Looking back, I wonder if that trip even happened, if his parents really existed, or if it was just another story Ethan told to keep Lily isolated during a holiday when family connections are typically strongest. December arrived, and with it came the engagement announcement. No warning, no heads up, just a text message on a random Tuesday evening. The message had a photo attached. Lily's left hand displaying a diamond engagement ring. The diamond was substantial, at least 2 carats, set in what looked like platinum. It was the kind of ring that cost $30,000 to $40,000 easily. The text read, "We're engaged. Wedding in 10 weeks. We're keeping it small and intimate. So excited." 10 weeks. That was my first real alarm bell. Why on earth would anyone plan a wedding in 10 weeks unless there was some urgent reason? Pregnancy? No. Lily would have told me. Financial reasons? That didn't make sense with the expensive ring. Unless someone was in a hurry to lock things down legally before anyone could interfere. I called immediately. The phone rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. I sent a text. "Lily, I just got your message. This is wonderful news. Can we talk? I want to hear all about it." 20 minutes passed, then an hour. Then my phone rang, but it was Ethan's number, not Lily's. "Oh, hey, Catherine," Ethan said, his voice dripping with false warmth when I answered. "Yeah, we're so pumped about this. It's going to be epic." Epic. He talked about marrying my daughter like it was a product launch or a sporting event. "Is Lily there? I'd love to talk to her." "She's just getting out of the shower, but she asked me to call you back. We wanted to share the good news personally." Personally would have been Lily calling me herself, I said, unable to keep the edge out of my voice. There was a pause. "Well, she's been crazy busy. and I'm helping her manage communications. You know how overwhelming this all is. I'd really like to speak with my daughter, I said firmly. Sure, Ethan said smoothly. I'll have her call you back in a bit. But while I have you, I wanted to mention that we're keeping the wedding really small. Just immediate family and our closest friends. We want it to be intimate, meaningful, not some big circus. Of course, I said. Can I help with any planning? I've been setting aside money for Lily's wedding since she was little. I'd love to contribute, to be involved however I can. Another pause, longer this time. That's really generous, Catherine. But we've got it handled. We're adults, you know? We want to do this our way, prove we can build our life independently. I'm sure you understand. We don't need anyone else's money or input. This is about us, starting fresh, building something that's completely ours. The way he said adults felt like a slap, as if wanting to be part of my daughter's wedding made me someone who didn't respect boundaries or see her as grown up. As if offering financial help that I'd been planning for years was somehow controlling rather than loving. I understand, I said quietly, though I didn't understand at all. But please, have Lily call me. I really need to talk to her. Absolutely. She'll call you tomorrow for sure, Ethan promised. She didn't call the next day, or the day after that. On the third day, I received a text from Lily's number. Mom, I'm so sorry I haven't called. Wedding planning is crazy. Ethan and I are handling everything together. I'll call you soon, promise. Love you. It sounded like her, but also didn't. Lily never used that many exclamation points. She wasn't someone who said things like, wedding planning is crazy, with that kind of breathless enthusiasm. And the phrase, Ethan and I are handling everything together, sounded rehearsed, like someone had told her what to say. Over the next several weeks, I tried repeatedly to connect with Lily. I sent texts asking about dress shopping, offering to help with invitations, suggesting we meet for coffee just to talk about everything. Her responses were always brief, delayed, and vague. We've got it covered, Mom. Ethan's handling most of the planning. I'll let you know details soon. I felt like I was chasing my own daughter, begging for scraps of involvement in one of the most important days of her life. Every text I sent felt desperate. Every unanswered call felt like another small rejection. I started to doubt myself. Was I being too pushy? Was I the overbearing mother that Ethan was probably painting me as? Should I back off and let them plan their wedding in peace, from back off and let them plan their wedding in peace? But every time I considered backing off, my instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. This wasn't normal. This wasn't how Lily behaved. My close, communicative daughter had been replaced by someone distant and evasive, and it had happened in less than a year of dating Ethan Cross. Then, 6 weeks before the wedding, I did something I'm not proud of. I drove to Lily's apartment unannounced on a Saturday afternoon. It was raining, typical Portland winter weather, and I'd told myself I was just in the neighborhood, running errands, and thought I'd drop by. But that was a lie. I specifically went there to see my daughter, to force a face-to-face conversation that couldn't be filtered through Ethan or dismissed with a brief text. I parked on the street and walked up to her apartment building, a converted warehouse in the industrial district that Lily loved for its high ceilings and natural light. I buzzed her apartment. No answer. I buzzed again. Still nothing. I was about to leave when another tenant came out, and I caught the door before it closed, slipping inside. I know, it was wrong, but I was desperate. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor and walked down the hallway to Lily's apartment. Before I could knock, the door opened. But it wasn't Lily standing there. It was Ethan. He was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, and for a moment, I saw surprise on his face before he rearranged his expression into something more neutral. Catherine, he said, not moving from the doorway, effectively blocking my view inside. This is a surprise. I wanted to see Lily. Is she home? I tried to peer past him into the apartment. She's out with her bridesmaids. Dress stuff, he said casually, leaning against the doorframe. His posture was deliberately casual, but there was tension in his shoulders. When will she be back? Not sure. Could be a few hours. You know how those things go. I didn't believe him. Something about his body language, the way he'd positioned himself so completely in the doorway, made me think Lily was inside and he didn't want me to see her. You know, Catherine, I think we need to have a conversation, Ethan said, his tone shifting to something more serious. My stomach tightened. About what? About boundaries. Lily's been really stressed lately, and a lot of it is coming from feeling pressured by you. The constant texts, the phone calls, showing up unannounced like this, it's a lot. It's affecting her mental health. I felt like I've been slapped. Pressured? I'm her mother. I just want to be part of her life, especially during this important time. And you are part of her life, Ethan said with exaggerated patience, like he was explaining something to a slow child. But she's building a new life now. With me. We need space to do that without you hovering constantly. She needs to individuate, establish her own identity separate from you. This is a crucial developmental stage for her. I'm sure you understand. There was that phrase again. I'm sure you understand. As if disagreeing would make me unreasonable, immature, someone who didn't grasp basic concepts of healthy adult relationships. I'd like to hear this from Lily, I said, my voice shaking slightly despite my efforts to stay calm. I think if my daughter has concerns about my behavior, she should tell me directly. Ethan's smile tightened. Sure, I'll let her know you stopped by, he said, and before I could respond, he stepped back and closed the door in my face. Not slammed it, just closed it firmly. Click. I stood there in the hallway of her apartment building, staring at that closed door, feeling a mixture of shock, anger, and something deeper that I can only describe as maternal fear. This wasn't about boundaries or independence. Something was profoundly wrong. My daughter was being isolated, and I was being systematically positioned as the problem, the obstacle, the controlling mother who couldn't let go. I pulled out my phone right there in the hallway and tried calling Lily. It went straight to voicemail, which meant her phone was either off or she'd blocked my number. I felt panic rising in my throat. I sent a text. Lily, I just came by to see you. Ethan said you're out, but I really need to talk to you. Please call me when you get this. I love you. The message showed as delivered, but no response came. I walked back to my car in the rain, got inside, and just sat there for a long time, letting the rain hammer against the windshield while I tried to process what had just happened. Ethan had shut me out, physically closed the door in my face, told me my attempts to connect with my daughter were harassment, were harmful to her mental health. And the worst part was, I had no way to verify if any of that was true, because I couldn't talk to Lily. When I got home that evening, I did what any desperate mother would do. I called in a favor. My colleague at the firm, Denise Park, had a brother who worked as a private investigator. I'd helped Denise navigate a messy divorce 2 years ago, managing her finances in a way that saved her literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. Helped her hide assets legally, guided her through the financial complexities while her marriage imploded. She told me multiple times that if I ever needed anything at all, I should call her. And strong. I called her that night. Denise, I need help, I said when she answered. It's about Lily. We met for coffee the next morning at a quiet place far from my usual spots, somewhere I wouldn't accidentally run into anyone I knew. I laid out everything for Denise. The whirlwind relationship, the changes in Lily, the exclusion from wedding planning, Ethan's controlling behavior, the door being shut in my face. I felt pathetic as I said it all out loud, like I was a paranoid mother who couldn't accept that her daughter was growing up. But Denise listened intently, her expression growing more serious as I talked. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Catherine, if you're asking me this, your instincts are already screaming at you. And from what you've described, they should be. This doesn't sound like normal relationship development. This sounds like isolation tactics. What's his name again? Ethan Cross. She pulled out her phone and made a call right there. James, it's Denise. I need you to meet with a friend of mine. Today, if possible. She needs information about someone, and I think it's urgent. She looked at me. Can you meet this afternoon? I nodded. Tell him I'll pay whatever he charges. That afternoon, I found myself sitting in a small, nondescript office in a building near the airport. James Park was Denise's older brother, a former police detective who'd gone into private investigation after retiring from the force. He was in his early 60s, with gray hair and tired eyes that had probably seen too much of humanity's worst behaviors. His office was sparse but organized. A desk, 2 chairs, filing cabinets, and multiple computer monitors. "Mrs. Wells," he greeted me, shaking my hand. "Denise told me a little about your situation. Before we go any further, I need to be clear about what I can and cannot do. I can conduct background checks, verify employment, look into public records, financial histories, social media. What I cannot do is anything illegal. No hacking, no trespassing, no wiretapping. Everything I find will be obtained through legal means. Are we clear?" "Absolutely," I said. "I just need to know if I'm crazy for being worried or if there's actually something wrong here." He pulled out a notepad. "Tell me everything you know about Ethan Cross." I spent the next hour detailing everything. How they met, the timeline of their relationship, the changes in Lily, the concerning behaviors I'd witnessed, the rushed engagement, the exclusion from wedding planning, the sparse digital footprint I'd noticed. James took notes without interrupting, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "The wedding is in 6 weeks," I said. "So as quickly as possible." He nodded. "Give me 3 days. I'll have a preliminary report for you by then. My rate is $200 an hour plus expenses. This kind of investigation typically runs between $3,000 and $5,000. Is that acceptable?" I didn't even hesitate. "Yes, whatever it costs. I'll need some information from you. Full name, date of birth if you know it, last known address, employer, anything else you can give me." I provided everything I knew, which admittedly wasn't much. James typed it all into his computer, then looked up at me. "Mrs. Wells, I need to be honest with you. In my experience, when someone's instincts are screaming at them the way yours clearly are, there's usually a reason. Most of what I find in cases like these isn't pleasant. Are you prepared for that?" "I need to know the truth," I said firmly. "Whatever it is, I need to know." "All right, I'll be in touch in 3 days, or sooner if I find something urgent." Those 3 days were the longest of my life. I couldn't focus at work. I couldn't sleep properly. I kept checking my phone obsessively, hoping for a call from Lily that never came. I replayed every interaction I'd had with Ethan, looking for signs I might have missed, red flags I should have seen sooner. The not knowing was torture, but I also dreaded finding out the truth, because I knew in my gut that it would be bad. James called me back in 2 days instead of 3. "Mrs. Wells, can you come to my office? I'd rather show you this in person." The drive to his office felt like it took hours, though it was only 20 minutes. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. When I arrived, James had papers spread across his desk in organized piles, and his expression was grim. "Sit down," he said gently. I sat. He slid the first document across the desk to me. It was a credit report. "Ethan Cross has $73,000 in debt." James explained: credit cards, personal loans, a car lease he's 3 months behind on. Most of this debt has been accumulated in the last 18 months. He's been dodging collection calls for the past 8 months. Several accounts have been sent to collections agencies. My hands felt cold as I looked at the numbers. The next document was a background check with employment verification. "His tech sales job at Vertex Solutions," James continued, "he was fired 4 months ago for falsifying client contracts and misrepresenting sales numbers. The company chose not to pursue criminal charges in exchange for his quiet departure. He signed a non-disclosure agreement. He's currently unemployed and has been since August. 4 months ago, right around the time he proposed to Lily. The fancy lifestyle, the expensive dinners, the ring he gave your daughter, James said. All of it is being funded by maxed out credit cards. The Rolex you mentioned? I tracked the serial number. It's a fake, purchased from an overseas website for about $300. The BMW he drives? Leased under someone else's name, with him as an authorized driver. When that lease runs out in 2 months, he'll have no vehicle. I felt sick. James wasn't finished. He pulled out another sheet. Here's where it gets significantly worse. Ethan Cross was previously engaged 2 years ago to a woman named Amanda Richardson. She's 32, was working as a pharmaceutical sales representative, made excellent money, and had a substantial inheritance from her grandmother, approximately $200,000. He slid across several printed screenshots from social media and court documents. They met at a conference, started dating, and were engaged within 5 months. Sound familiar? He moved into her apartment, gained access to her bank accounts, credit cards, everything. Over the course of 8 months, he systematically drained her accounts. He convinced her to take out personal loans in her name to invest in business opportunities that never materialized. He used her credit cards for luxury purchases that he claimed were for their future together. By the time Amanda realized what was happening, he'd stolen over $40,000 and destroyed her credit. She filed a police report, James continued. But by the time authorities got involved, Ethan had moved to a different state. The case went cold because legally she'd given him access to her accounts willingly. He never technically committed fraud in the eyes of the law because she'd authorized him to use her financial resources. He was careful that way, very careful. I stared at the documents, feeling my world tilt. "There's more," James said quietly. He turned his laptop toward me. I was able to access some publicly available data through coffee shop Wi-Fi networks that Ethan has used. This is all legal, by the way. When people use public Wi-Fi, certain search histories and browsing data become accessible if you know where to look. He showed me a list of search terms all dated from the past 6 months. How to access trust fund inheritance. Can spouse claim trust fund assets? Marital rights to partners' investments. How to become beneficiary of life insurance. Legal rights to partners' property after marriage. Parental financial control removal attorney. The room felt like it was spinning. "He's been planning this," I whispered. "He's a con artist, Mrs. Wells, a sophisticated one. He targets women with financial security or family wealth, isolates them from their support systems, rushes them into engagement and marriage before anyone can intervene, and then systematically drains their resources. Your daughter is his current mark, and you're the primary obstacle he needs to remove because you control most of the actual assets." James pulled out more documents. I also found evidence of 2 other women before Amanda, one in California, one in Nevada. Similar patterns, though neither of them filed police reports. I tracked them down through social media connections and public records. Both relationships ended suddenly. Both women were left with debt, and in both cases, Ethan moved to a new state shortly afterward. This is his method, his pattern. He's been doing this for at least 5 years that I can confirm, possibly longer. He's very good at it. He knows exactly how to manipulate, how to isolate, how to operate just within the boundaries of legality so that prosecution is nearly impossible. I felt like I might vomit. My daughter, my smart, capable, wonderful daughter, was engaged to a predator. A man who had researched her financial background like he was planning a heist. A man who had probably never loved her for a single moment, who saw her only as a means to an end. "What about the wedding?" I managed to ask. "Why the rush?" James pulled up something on his laptop and turned it toward me. I found the venue contract for the wedding. They're getting married at the Riverside Estate. Very nice place. But here's what's interesting. In the contract notes and correspondence with the venue coordinator, Ethan explained that they needed to be married before the end of February because of inheritance stipulations in Lily's grandmother's will. Specifically, that she needed to be married by a certain date to access certain funds. I felt anger cutting through the fear. His grandmother, my mother, died 15 years ago. There are no such stipulations. There's no inheritance tied to marriage timelines. That's completely fabricated. Exactly, James said. He's been lying to vendors, possibly to Lily as well. My guess is that he needs the marriage certificate urgently for something specific. Maybe to legitimize his position before someone like you can intervene. Maybe to access her benefits at work or to establish legal rights to assets. Maybe he has creditors or legal problems closing in, and he needs the appearance of stability and access to resources immediately. James pulled out another document. There's also this. 3 weeks ago, there was a loan application submitted to a private lending company for $50,000 in Daniel's name. It was denied because the income-to-debt ratio didn't qualify and the application contained irregularities. Daniel? I asked, confused. Sorry, Daniel was my previous case. I mean Lily's name. A loan application was submitted in Lily's name. He slid the document across to me. Look at the contact information. The email address is Vanessa's. No, I apologize again. I've been working multiple similar cases. The email address is Ethan's. The phone number is his. The signature on the application doesn't match your daughter's signature on file at her bank. I cross-referenced with her signature from her business registration documents. This is fraud, Mrs. Wells. Clear, documentable fraud. He attempted to take out a loan in her name without her knowledge or consent. That's identity theft, which is a felony. I stared at the papers spread across the desk. Here it was. Proof, not suspicion, not motherly paranoia. Criminal fraud. Identity theft. A calculated, methodical campaign to exploit my daughter for financial gain. I need copies of everything, I said, my voice steadier now. The initial shock was crystallizing into cold determination. And I need you to document more if you can. Phone records. Anything that shows the pattern of isolation and control. Financial transactions. Everything. I'll have a complete report compiled by tomorrow, James said. But Mrs. Wells, you need to understand something. You need to tell your daughter. Show her this evidence, because in 6 weeks, she's going to marry someone who's already committed crimes using her identity. If she gets that marriage certificate, the fraud becomes exponentially more complicated, and he'll have legal rights that make removing him from her life much more difficult. I've tried to talk to her, I said, frustration bleeding into my voice. She won't take my calls. She barely responds to texts. He's controlling all communication. Then you need to find a way to make her listen, because time is running out. James paused, then added, there's one more thing you should consider. I did find Ethan's parents. They do exist. They're not in Arizona. They're in Northern Oregon. I made a discreet inquiry. They're estranged from their son and have been for about 3 years. The father, Robert Cross, told me off the record that Ethan is, quote, a danger to any woman who gets involved with him, and that they've tried multiple times to get him psychological help, but he refuses. Would they testify to that? Would they talk to Lily? The father said his wife's health is too fragile to withstand the stress of any involvement, but he did say that if needed, he'd be willing to provide a written statement about his son's history. I have his contact information if you need it. I left James's office with a folder full of evidence and a decision crystallizing in my mind. Lily wouldn't take my calls, wouldn't respond to my texts. Fine, but she couldn't ignore a registered letter from an attorney, especially if it outlined legal concerns about fraud being committed in her name. That evening, I sat down with my attorney, Gloria Mitchell. Gloria had handled Marcus's estate when he died, had been my legal advisor for over 20 years. She was in her late 60s, sharp as a razor, and didn't tolerate nonsense from anyone. I showed her everything James had found, and I watched her expression harden as she read through the documents. Catherine, this is serious. This man is a career criminal, and your daughter is in immediate danger. Not physical danger, perhaps, but certainly financial and psychological danger. I know. What can I do? Gloria thought for a moment. We're going to do several things, simultaneously and strategically. First, we're going to send Lily a formal letter from this office outlining the legal concerns, including the identity theft, the loan fraud, and the pattern of behavior documented by the investigator. We'll send it certified mail to her home address and to her business address, requiring signature. That creates a paper trail that she received notification. Second, we're going to restructure all of the financial assets that connect you to Lily in ways that Ethan could potentially exploit. The trust fund needs to be modified immediately with an ironclad clause specifying that it cannot be accessed before she turns 32 and that any spouse she marries before that age has zero claim to the assets, marital property or otherwise. We'll also add provisions that protect the assets even after that age if there's evidence of coercion or exploitation. You need to remove yourself as co-signer from anything you've co-signed for her. Car loans, apartment leases, credit cards, anything. I know that sounds harsh, but every financial connection is a potential access point for him. Fourth, we're going to close or freeze any jointly held accounts. I assume you have a savings account that you opened with her years ago. Yes, I confirmed. There's about $26,000 in it. Transfer that money to a new account in your name only. Again, I know it feels like you're taking something from her, but you're actually protecting it for her. Right now, if she gives Ethan access to that account, and she probably will if she hasn't already, that money will disappear. And finally, Gloria continued, we're going to file a police report regarding the loan application fraud. Even if prosecution is difficult, having an official report on file creates documentation. It establishes a timeline and a pattern. If this goes further, if he does more damage, that initial report becomes crucial evidence. I nodded, feeling overwhelmed but also relieved to have a plan, to be taking action instead of just sitting helplessly. How quickly can we do all of this? I can have the trust modifications drafted and filed within 48 hours. The letter to Lily can go out tomorrow. The police report you can file tomorrow. The financial disconnections, removing yourself as co-signer and such, you can start that immediately with phone calls to the relevant institutions. One more thing, Catherine, Gloria said, looking at me seriously. When Lily finds out about this, and she will, it's going to cause an explosion. Ethan will tell her you did all of this out of spite, to punish her for choosing him, to control her life. He will twist this into a narrative where you're the villain. Are you prepared for that? If I do nothing, I said quietly, and he destroys her financially, emotionally, leaves her in debt and broken, she'll suffer for years trying to recover. If I do this and she hates me temporarily, but I save her from a predator, then I can live with her hatred. I can't live with her destruction. Gloria nodded slowly. Then let's make sure everything is airtight and that your daughter is protected, whether she understands it right now or not. We worked late into the night, drafting documents, making lists, preparing the legal letter. By the time I left Gloria's office at nearly midnight, I was exhausted, but also felt a grim sense of purpose. The next morning, I started making calls. I called Lily's car dealership first, explained that I needed to be removed as co-signer from her auto loan. The representative was initially resistant, explaining that it would require Lily to refinance the loan on her own credit. And given that she was self-employed with variable income, she might not qualify for the same interest rate. I understand, I said, but I need to be removed regardless. What's the process? They explained that Lily would need to apply for refinancing, provide income verification, and if approved, the loan would be transferred to her name only. If she wasn't approved, the car could potentially be repossessed unless she found another co-signer. It was harsh, but necessary. I authorized them to begin the process. Next, I called her landlord. Lily had moved to a new apartment about a year ago. And I'd co-signed the lease because even with her business income, landlords preferred a co-signer for self-employed applicants. I explained to the landlord, Mr. Haruki, that I needed to be released from my obligation. He was understanding, more so than the car dealership. Mrs. Wells, I've actually been meaning to contact you. There have been some issues with the apartment, noise complaints from neighbors, specifically from a male resident. I assume it's Lily's boyfriend or partner. Also, they're 2 months behind on rent. 2 months behind on rent? That's impossible, I said. I see the money transferred from her account every month. The transfer hasn't come through for January or February. I've been sending notices, but I haven't received any response. I was going to start eviction proceedings next week if payment doesn't come through. My stomach dropped. Mr. Haruki, I'll pay the back rent today, right now, but I need you to do something for me. I need you to confirm that those payments are being sent to the correct account. Can you check if there's been any change to where the rent payment is directed? There was a pause as he looked something up. Actually, yes. In December, I received a request to change the payment information. It came via email from Lily's account, asking that rent be directed to a new account for business accounting purposes. I updated it per her request. What account? He read off the account information. I wrote it down, feeling rage building. The account wasn't Lily's business account. I knew her business account number. This was something else. Mr. Haruki, that change wasn't authorized by Lily. Someone accessed her email and redirected her rent payments. I'm going to send you payment for the back rent immediately. But I need you to change the payment destination back to the original account. And I need you to document that unauthorized change. It's evidence of fraud. Oh my God, he said. Of course. I'll change it back immediately. Mrs. Wells, is Lily okay? Is she safe? I'm working on that, I said. But in the meantime, I need to be removed as co-signer from her lease as soon as legally possible. I transferred $5,000 to Mr. Haruki's account to cover the back rent and a buffer. Then I called the bank where Lily and I had our joint savings account, the one I'd opened when she was 18 to teach her about saving and financial management. Over the years, I'd contributed most of the money. Occasionally, she'd add some, and it had grown to $26,000. I need to close this account and transfer all funds to my personal account, I told the bank representative. May I ask the reason for closing the account? The woman asked. I need to protect the assets from potential fraud, I said honestly. The transfer was completed within 15 minutes. $26,000 moved to safety. I felt like I was dismantling my daughter's life, cutting her safety net away. But I also knew that if I didn't protect these assets, they'd be gone within weeks of her marrying Ethan. By midday, I'd made all the necessary calls. Gloria's office had sent the certified letter to both of Lily's addresses. It outlined the fraud evidence, explained the legal implications, offered to meet with her to discuss the situation, and urged her to reconsider the marriage. I knew Ethan would probably intercept at least one of those letters. But we'd sent copies to 2 locations, hoping at least one would reach her. Then, I went to the police station. Detective Sarah Chen met with me in a small interview room. I brought all of Jane's documentation. The credit reports, the loan application with the forged signature, Amanda Richardson's police report from 2 years ago, everything. Detective Chen listened carefully, taking notes, asking clarifying questions. Mrs. Wells, I want to be honest with you, she said when I finished. Unless your daughter presses charges herself, this is going to be extremely difficult to prosecute. She's an adult, and if Ethan claims she gave him permission to submit that loan application, it becomes a he said, she said situation. The forged signature helps, but a defense attorney could argue that she pre-signed forms or that the signature variation is within normal range. I understand, I said, but I want this documented. I want an official report on file that shows the pattern, the timeline, the evidence. Because I think he's going to do more, and when he does, this initial report will be crucial. You're thinking ahead, Detective Chen said approvingly. All right, let's get this officially filed. The report took over an hour to complete, going through every detail, attaching copies of all the evidence. When we finished, Detective Chen handed me a case number. If anything else happens, any other fraudulent activity, contact me immediately. I'll be the lead on this case, and I'll be watching for any related reports. Also, you mentioned that this Ethan Cross has done this before in other states? At least 3 other women that we know of. I'm going to reach out to law enforcement in those jurisdictions, see if we can build a larger case. Sometimes these guys operate for years without facing consequences because each victim is isolated, unconnected. But if we can show a pattern across state lines, that's federal fraud, and the FBI can get involved. That gave me a tiny spark of hope. Thank you, Detective. Thank you for reporting this. Too many people ignore the warning signs or they're too embarrassed to come forward. Your daughter is lucky to have a mother paying attention. I didn't feel lucky. I felt terrified that despite everything I was doing, it wouldn't be enough. That night, I was home, exhausted, drinking tea and reviewing my next steps when my doorbell rang at 8:30. Through the window, I saw Lily's car in my driveway. My heart leaped. Finally, she'd come to talk. Maybe the letter had reached her. Maybe she'd seen the evidence and wanted to discuss it. I opened the door, hope rising in my chest, but the hope died immediately. Lily stood there, but she wasn't alone. Ethan was beside her, his hand gripping her arm in what looked like a supportive gesture, but was actually a handler's grip. His face was composed, but his eyes were cold with fury. Lily looked exhausted, thinner than ever, and there was something defeated in her posture. "We need to talk, Mom," Lily said. Her voice was flat, rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. "Of course, sweetheart. Come in." They entered my living room, and I noticed immediately how Ethan positioned himself between Lily and me. How he remained standing, even as I gestured to the chairs, maintaining a physical advantage, dominating the space. "You've crossed a line," Lily began, but the words sounded wooden. "The bank called me today. The savings account we shared is closed. The car dealership says I need to refinance my loan because you removed yourself as cosigner. My landlord told me you paid my back rent, which I didn't even know was missing, and that you're removing yourself from my lease. And I received a letter from your attorney making accusations about Ethan that are completely false and invasive." I looked at my daughter carefully. Her hands were trembling slightly. She wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "Lily, did you read the letter? Did you see the evidence attached?" "The letter is filled with lies," Ethan interjected before Lily could answer. "Fabricated documents, false accusations, character assassination. This is harassment. Catherine, this is financial abuse. You're weaponizing money to control Lily's life. We could sue you for this." "Sue me for managing my own assets?" I said calmly. "For administering a trust according to its legal terms? For protecting myself from being liable for an apartment where rent mysteriously wasn't being paid, where it was being redirected to an unauthorized account? Good luck with that, Ethan." His jaw tightened. "You've been investigating me, hiring private detectives to spy on me, dig into my personal life. That's illegal invasion of privacy." "Everything in that report came from public records," I said evenly. "Court documents, credit bureaus, employment verification, police reports. Nothing illegal, just facts about who you really are." "Who I really am?" He stepped forward slightly. "I'm someone who loves your daughter, who wants to build a life with her, who's trying to help her become independent from a controlling, manipulative mother who can't let go." I kept my gaze on Lily. "Honey, did you know that 2 months of your rent payments were being redirected to an account that isn't yours? Did you authorize that?" She looked confused, glancing at Ethan. I don't know what you're talking about." "In December. Someone accessed your email and sent a message to your landlord asking that rent payments be directed to a different account. You've been paying rent into that account for 2 months, but the money never reached your landlord. Where did it go?" "This is ridiculous," Ethan said loudly. "There was probably some banking error, some technical glitch. Catherine is twisting everything to make me look bad because she's terrified of losing her grip on Lily." I walked to my desk and pulled out the folder James had given me, the complete investigation report. I held it out to Lily. "Read it, all of it, then decide who's lying." Lily stared at the folder like it might burn her. Ethan moved to intercept it, but I held it away from him, keeping my eyes on my daughter. "This is all fabricated," Ethan said, his voice rising. Fake documents created by some investigator she paid to make up lies. This woman will do anything to break us up. The credit report is from TransUnion, I said calmly. The background check includes employment verification directly from your former employer. The police report from Amanda Richardson is from the Denver Police Department, case number included. The loan application with the forged signature has a reference number that your bank can verify. Nothing here is fabricated. It's all documented fact. Lily's hands were shaking as she slowly reached for the folder. But before she could take it, Ethan grabbed her arm. "Don't," he said sharply. "Don't give her the satisfaction. She's trying to manipulate you, playing on your emotions, using your relationship to control you. This is emotional blackmail." "Let go of her arm," I said quietly. "Now." He didn't let go. If anything, his grip tightened. I could see Lily wince slightly. "Ethan, you're hurting me," she said softly. He immediately loosened his grip, but didn't release her. "Sorry, babe. I'm just frustrated. Your mom is trying to destroy us, and I'm trying to protect you." "Protect her from what?" I asked. "From the truth? From finding out that you have $73,000 in debt? That you were fired from your job 4 months ago? That you've done the same con to at least 3 other women? That you attempted to take out a loan in her name without her knowledge?" "Those are lies," he said. But his voice had lost some of its conviction. "Then why won't you let her read the evidence? If it's all lies, if it's all fabricated, what are you afraid of?" Lily pulled her arm free from his grip. "I want to see it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lily, no," Ethan said. "She's going to fill your head with poison. She's going to twist everything. This is exactly what controlling parents do. They manufacture crises to maintain power. I want to see it." Lily repeated. Stronger this time. She took the folder from me. I watched her face as she began to read. I saw confusion, then shock, then something that looked like the early stages of devastation. She read through the credit report, her finger tracing the lines of debt. She read Amanda Richardson's statement, her hand moving to her mouth. She looked at the loan application with the forged signature, comparing it mentally to her own handwriting. Ethan was pacing now, agitated. "Baby, whatever you're reading, remember that these things can be faked. People can create documents that look official. This is a smear campaign. Your mother hired someone to create a narrative that would break us up." But Lily wasn't listening to him. She was reading page after page, tears starting to stream down her face, silently. When she got to the search history showing Ethan's research into trust funds and marital rights to inheritance, she stopped breathing for a moment. "You researched how to access my trust fund," she said quietly. "Before we were even engaged, you were looking up how to get access to my inheritance." "That's taken out of context," Ethan said quickly. "I was doing financial planning for our future. I wanted to understand your complete financial picture so we could make smart decisions together." "And the loan application in my name?" Lily asked, looking up at him. "The one with a forged signature?" "That was a misunderstanding. There was confusion at the lending company. I was looking into loan options for us, for the wedding expenses, and there was a communication error. The loan application was submitted 3 weeks ago," I said quietly. "The wedding has been paid for, according to what you've told Lily. What would you need a $50,000 loan for 3 weeks before a wedding that's already funded?" Ethan's face was reddening. "This is insane. I'm not going to stand here and be interrogated based on a bunch of false documents. Lily, we're leaving. Right now. This is toxic, and I won't let your mother poison you against me." "And Amanda Richardson?" Lily asked, still reading. "The woman you were engaged to 2 years ago? The one who filed a police report claiming you stole $40,000 from her?" "She was mentally unstable," Ethan said. "I tried to help her, and when I ended the relationship because it was unhealthy, she made false accusations out of revenge. The charges were never prosecuted because there was no evidence. Or because she'd voluntarily given you access, and you operated just within the edge of legality, I said. Lily closed the folder slowly. She just sat there, staring at it in her lap. The silence stretched. Then she said, in a voice so small it broke my heart. There was a notebook. 3 weeks ago, I found a notebook in your car. It had a list of my assets. The trust fund, the savings account, the condo my mom mentioned giving me someday. Next to each item was a dollar amount and notes about when you could access them. When I asked you about it, you said you were just planning our financial future. Ethan went very still. I was making sure we were smart about resources, planning ahead. No, Lily said, and there was something new in her voice. Strength, anger, clarity. You were making an inventory. I was a business plan, a target. She stood up, still holding the folder. How much of this is true? She asked him directly. How much debt do you actually have? Baby, that's not... How much? He hesitated, and in that hesitation, she saw the truth. Some, he finally admitted. I have some debt. Everyone does. It's not a big deal. $73,000 isn't some debt, Lily said, her voice shaking. That's catastrophic. And you let me think you were financially stable? You let me think you had a good job when you've been unemployed for 4 months? You've been lying to me about everything. I was going to tell you, Ethan said, desperation creeping into his voice now. I just didn't want you to worry. I didn't want you to think I wasn't good enough for you. I was protecting you from stress. Protecting me? Lily's voice rose. You attempted to take out a loan in my name? You forged my signature. That's identity theft. That's fraud. That's a crime. She was shouting now, years of suppressed doubt and fear suddenly breaking through the surface. It wasn't like that, Ethan said, his hands raised in a placating gesture. There was confusion with the paperwork. I would never hurt you. Everything I've done has been for us, for our future together. Our future? Lily laughed, but it was a broken sound. You don't want a future with me. You want access to my money, my mother's money. You've been playing me this entire time. That's not true, Ethan said, moving toward her. I love you. Everything your mother is saying is designed to turn you against me. She's manipulating you right now. Can't you see that? This is exactly what she wants. To drive us apart, to keep you under her control forever. Don't you dare, Lily said, backing away from him. Don't you dare try to gaslight me about my own mother. She's been trying to protect me, and I was too blind to see it. Too foolish to listen. Lily, please. Ethan's voice became pleading. Just come home with me. We can talk about this calmly, away from her influence. We can work through this together. Every relationship has problems. This is just a rough patch. A rough patch? Lily looked at him with something like wonder. You've been systematically isolating me from everyone who loves me, controlling my communications, undermining my confidence, planning to steal from me. That's not a rough patch. That's abuse. I saw the moment Ethan realized he was losing. His expression changed, the mask of the charming boyfriend falling away completely. What replaced it was cold calculation. If you walk away from me now, he said, his voice dropping to something low and threatening, you'll regret it. I know things about you, Lily. About your business, about some of your clients, about some questionable tax practices. I'd hate for that information to become public. Are you threatening me? Lily asked, incredulous. I'm telling you that ending this relationship would be a mistake with consequences you haven't considered, Ethan said. We're supposed to be getting married in 5 weeks. I've made commitments based on that expectation. If you humiliate me by calling off this wedding, I will make sure everyone knows exactly why. I'll tell everyone that you and your psychotic mother made up lies about me, that you're unstable, that your business is a fraud. I have emails, texts, documentation. I can destroy your reputation. Get out, I said quietly. Get out of my house right now. He ignored me, focused entirely on Lily. Baby, I don't want to do any of that. I love you. I want to marry you. But you need to make a choice right now. Come home with me. We'll put this behind us. We'll move forward. Or believe your mother's lies and deal with the consequences. Lily looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "The only thing I regret is not seeing what you were months ago. Get away from me. And if you contact me again, if you come near me, if you threaten my business or my reputation, I will give all of this evidence to the police, and I will press charges. Do you understand?" Ethan stared at her, disbelief crossing his face. He'd expected her to cave, expected the threat to work. When it didn't, rage took over. "You stupid bitch," he hissed. "You have no idea what you're throwing away. I could have made you something. Instead, you're going to stay under mommy's thumb for the rest of your pathetic life. You deserve each other." "I said get out," I repeated, pulling out my phone, "or I'm calling the police right now. You're trespassing, and you just made verbal threats against my daughter." He looked between us, seemed to realize he'd lost completely, and headed for the door. But at the threshold, he turned back one more time. "This isn't over," he said, pointing at me. "You think you've won, but you've just made an enemy. I will make sure you both pay for this." Then he was gone, the door slamming behind him. Through the window, I watched him get into his BMW and peel out of my driveway too fast, tires squealing. For a moment, Lily and I just stood there in the aftermath. Then she collapsed onto the couch, the folder of evidence falling to the floor, and began to sob. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. I sat beside her and pulled her into my arms. She didn't resist. She clung to me like she had when she was a little girl, and I held her while she cried out months of fear and confusion and manipulation. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she kept saying between sobs. "I'm so sorry. You tried to tell me. You tried to warn me, and I wouldn't listen. I chose him over you. I said terrible things to you." "Shh," I stroked her hair. "You don't have to apologize. You were being manipulated by someone who's very, very good at it. This is not your fault." "I was so stupid," she cried. "How did I not see it? All the signs were there. The way he controlled everything, the way he isolated me from my friends, from you. God, I uninvited my own mother from my wedding because he told me to. What's wrong with me?" "Nothing is wrong with you," I said firmly. "You trusted someone you loved. That's not a character flaw. That's being human. Ethan is a professional con artist. He's done this multiple times to multiple women. You're not stupid. You're a victim of a calculated predator." She cried for nearly half an hour while I just held her. When the sobs finally subsided into hiccups and shaky breaths, she pulled back and looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "What do I do now?" she asked. "Now you stay here tonight, where you're safe. Tomorrow we call the police and add to the report I already filed. We document everything that happened tonight, including his threats. We get a restraining order. We cancel the wedding officially. We secure all your accounts and change every password. And then, slowly, you start rebuilding your life." "I don't even know where to start," she said helplessly. "I feel like my whole life has been a lie for the past year." "Then we start small," I said. "First thing tomorrow, you're going to call Hannah, Sophie, and Marissa. You're going to apologize for pushing them away, and you're going to let them back into your life. You're going to reconnect with the people who actually love you." "They probably hate me," Lily said. "I haven't talked to any of them in months." I canceled plans, ignored calls. Why would they want anything to do with me? This was just crazy. "Because real friends understand when someone they love is in an abusive situation," I said, "and they'll be grateful you got out." She nodded slowly. "Mom, he said I was behind on rent, but I've been making payments every month. Where did that money go?" I explained what Mr. Haruki had told me. About the email requesting the payment destination change, about how her rent had been going into an account that wasn't hers. Lily's face went white. He was stealing my rent money. For 2 months, he's been stealing from me right under my nose. That's what the police report is for, I said. That's documented fraud. It's evidence that will be used if he tries anything else. His threats, Lily said, suddenly, fear creeping back into her voice. About my business, about my taxes. Mom, I haven't done anything wrong with my taxes. But what if he fabricates evidence? What if he tries to sabotage me? Then we fight back with the truth, I said. But Lily, I want you to think carefully. Did you ever give him access to your business accounts? Your computer? Any passwords? She thought for a moment, then her face crumpled again. Yes, he has my laptop password. He said it was so he could use my computer if his was charging or if he needed to look something up. And I gave him access to my business bank account a few weeks ago because he said we needed to coordinate our finances before the wedding, that it would make tax filing easier. Okay, I said, staying calm even though internally I was panicking. First thing in the morning, you are going to change every single password. Email, social media, bank accounts, business accounts, everything. Then you're going to call your bank and revoke his access immediately. You're going to check every transaction from the past few weeks to make sure nothing unusual has happened. What if he's already taken money? What if he's already done something to sabotage me? Then we document it and add it to the police report. But right now, the most important thing is that you're safe and you know the truth. Everything else we can deal with. Lily nodded, wiping her eyes. Can I really stay here tonight? You can stay here as long as you need to, I said. Your old room is exactly as you left it. Tomorrow, we'll figure out going to your apartment to get your things, but not tonight. Tonight, you just rest. I don't want to go back there, she said quietly. Even to get my stuff? The thought of being in that apartment where he was, where he had access to everything, where he was probably planning how to steal from me. I can't. Then we'll handle it differently, I said. We'll have the police escort you for a civil standby, where they supervise while you collect your belongings. Or I can hire movers to pack everything while you stay somewhere safe. Whatever you need. She leaned against me again, exhausted. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for fighting even when I hated you for it. I will always fight for you, I said simply. That's what mothers do. We sat there for a while longer. Then I got up and made tea, the way I always did when Lily was troubled. Chamomile with honey, her favorite since she was a teenager. She wrapped her hands around the mug like it could anchor her to something solid. I need to call off the wedding officially, she said. I need to contact the venue, the vendors, everyone. Oh God, people are going to ask questions. What do I even say? You say, there's been a change in circumstances and the wedding is canceled. You don't owe anyone an explanation beyond that. The people who matter will understand. The people who don't understand don't matter. My few relatives who were invited. Ethan's friends, the people at the venue who've been planning this for weeks. They're all going to think I'm flaky or unstable or... She trailed off. Or they're going to think you dodged a bullet, which is exactly what happened, I said firmly. Lily, you're going to face some uncomfortable conversations and some judgment from people who don't know the full story. But you know what? That's infinitely better than waking up married to a man who sees you as a financial transaction. She nodded, sipping her tea. We talked for hours that night, going through everything. I told her about hiring James, about the report from Amanda Richardson, about Robert Cross's phone call warning me about his own son. I showed her all the evidence. Let her read through everything carefully now that Ethan wasn't there spinning narratives and controlling information. There's something I need to tell you, Lily said around midnight. Something I haven't told anyone because I was too ashamed. You can tell me anything, I said. About 3 weeks ago, Ethan asked me to add him to my life insurance policy. I have a policy through my business worth about $500,000. He said that since we were getting married, he should be the beneficiary instead of you, that it was the responsible thing to do as a couple. And Mom, I almost did it. I was literally about to call the insurance company when something stopped me. Some instinct, some little voice that said, wait. So I told Ethan I'd do it after the wedding, that it would be easier to handle with all the other name change paperwork. I felt cold horror wash over me. He wanted to be on your life insurance policy before you were even married? He pushed hard for it too, Lily said. When I told him I wanted to wait, he got upset, said I didn't trust him, that I was putting my mother's opinions before our relationship. He gave me the silent treatment for 2 days until I apologized and promised I'd do it right after the wedding. Lily, I said carefully, do you understand what that means? If he'd gotten on that policy, if you'd married him, if something had happened to you? I know, she whispered. I know what it means. Mom, was I in actual danger? Like physical danger? I chose my words carefully. I don't know. James didn't find any history of violence in Ethan's background. But a man that desperate for money, that calculating, that willing to commit fraud, and who wanted to be the beneficiary of a life insurance policy before marriage? That's concerning in ways I don't want to think about too deeply. Lily set down her teacup with shaking hands. I need to call the insurance company tomorrow too. Make sure he doesn't have any access. Make sure my beneficiary information is locked down. We'll make a list, I said. Every account, every password. Every place where he might have information or access. And we'll secure all of it systematically. Eventually, exhausted, we went upstairs. I helped Lily find something to sleep in since she hadn't brought anything with her. Gave her fresh towels. Made sure her room was comfortable. Before she closed the door, she hugged me again. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry for everything. P.S. I love you too, sweetheart. Try to get some rest. Tomorrow is a new day. I went to my own room but couldn't sleep for a long time. I kept thinking about what could have happened. If I hadn't trusted my instincts. If I hadn't hired James. If I hadn't intervened. Lily could have married Ethan. He would have had legal rights to her assets, her income, her life. He would have isolated her completely, drained her financially, destroyed her credit, potentially her business. And that life insurance policy? I didn't want to let my mind go there, but it went there anyway. The next morning, I woke to find Lily already up, sitting at my kitchen table with her laptop and her phone, a legal pad covered in notes beside her. I've been making lists, she said when I came downstairs. Every account, every password, every vendor for the wedding, every financial connection to Ethan. Mom, it's worse than I thought. He has information for almost everything. We spent the entire day securing her life, piece by piece. We changed every password, adding 2-factor authentication everywhere possible. We called her bank and revoked Ethan's access to her business account. The bank representative asked if there had been any suspicious activity, so we reviewed her transaction history together, line by line. That's when we found it. 2 transfers in the past week, both to external accounts. One for $3,000, one for $5,000. $8,000 gone. The descriptions read, business expense reimbursement, but Lily hadn't authorized either transfer. He stole $8,000 from my business account, she said, staring at the screen. In the past week alone. We documented everything with screenshots and called Detective Chen immediately. She asked us to come to the station that afternoon to add to the report. When we arrived, Detective Chen listened as Lily recounted everything from the previous night. Ethan's admissions, his threats, the evidence she'd seen. She provided written authorization for the police to access her bank records to investigate the unauthorized transfers. This is good, Detective Chen said. This gives us concrete financial fraud with documentation. Combined with the loan application and the redirected rent payments, we have a pattern. I'm going to request a warrant for Ethan Cross's financial records. And Ms. Wells, I strongly recommend you file for a restraining order. Given his threats last night, you have grounds for immediate protection. We went straight from the police station to the courthouse. By late afternoon, Lily had a temporary restraining order that prohibited Ethan from contacting her, coming near her, or approaching her home or business. It would be in effect for 2 weeks until a hearing could determine if a longer-term order was warranted. The court clerk explained that a process server would deliver the restraining order to Ethan within 48 hours. Once he's been served, she said, if he violates the order in any way, even a text message or email, you call the police immediately and he'll be arrested. Next, we tackled the wedding cancellations. Lily called the venue first, her hands shaking as she dialed. The coordinator was surprised, but professional. Ms. Wells, I'm so sorry to hear this. Is everything all right? Lily said, there's been a significant change in circumstances. Her voice steadier than I expected. The wedding is canceled. I understand there won't be a refund, but I wanted to notify you as soon as possible. We appreciate that, the coordinator said. I'll take care of notifying our vendors and staff. Miss Wells, I hope you're safe and taking care of yourself. After she hung up, Lily looked at me with tears in her eyes. She was kind. I expected judgment, but she was kind. Most people are. What it matters, I said. One by one, Lily made the calls. Caterer, florist, photographer, DJ. Each conversation was difficult, but she got through them. Most vendors were understanding. Some even expressed concern for her well-being. A few were purely transactional, informing her of their cancellation policies and lost deposits. By the time she finished, Lily had lost about $18,000 in non-refundable deposits. $18,000, she said quietly, gone, for a wedding that's not happening. A small price compared to what you would have lost if you'd married him, I pointed out. Consider it an expensive lesson in trusting your instincts. That evening, Lily finally called Hannah. Sophie and Marissa. She put the call on speaker so I could hear, her nervousness palpable. Hey guys, she said when they all answered via group video call. I know I've been terrible about staying in touch. I owe all of you a huge apology. Lily, Hannah's face lit up on the screen. Oh my God, we've been so worried about you. Are you okay? Not really, Lily admitted, but I'm getting there. The wedding is off. Ethan and I are done. And I need to apologize because he was isolating me from you guys, and I let him, and I'm so sorry. We knew something was wrong, Sophie said. We tried to tell you, but I know. I didn't want to hear it, but you were right about everything, and I'm sorry I pushed you all away. The four of them talked for over an hour, Lily crying as she gave them the abbreviated version of what had happened. Her friends expressing shock and anger and relief that she'd gotten out. By the end of the call, they'd made plans to meet for brunch that weekend. We missed you so much, Marissa said. We're just glad you're safe. After the call, Lily seemed lighter, like reconnecting with her friends had relieved some of the crushing weight she'd been carrying. Over the next few days, we settled into a routine. Lily stayed with me, sleeping in her old room, slowly decompressing from months of manipulation and control. She worked on her design projects during the day, rebuilding her confidence in her professional abilities. We had dinner together every evening, talking through her feelings, her fears, her anger. About a week after the confrontation, Detective Chen called. We served Ethan Cross with the restraining order yesterday. He took it without incident, but the process server said he seemed extremely angry. I want you both to be vigilant. Don't go anywhere alone if you can help it. If you see him anywhere near you, call 911 immediately. 2 days later, Ethan violated the restraining order. Lily received an email from a new account she didn't recognize. The subject line read, "You'll regret this." The email itself was a long, rambling message, alternating between professing his love and making thinly veiled threats about ruining her reputation, exposing her business practices, and making sure everyone knew she was unstable and manipulated by her psychotic mother. Lily showed me the email with shaking hands. "He's not supposed to contact me at all. This violates the order." "Forward it to Detective Chen immediately," I said, "and we're calling the police." Within an hour, officers arrived to take our statement. They documented the email, confirmed it was a clear violation of the restraining order. That evening, Ethan Cross was arrested for violating a protective order. He spent the night in jail and appeared before a judge the next morning. The judge extended Lily's restraining order to 1 year and warned Ethan that any further violations would result in longer jail time. When Detective Chen called to update us, she had more news. We executed the warrant for Ethan Cross's financial records. It's bad. He has multiple bank accounts, all overdrawn. Credit cards maxed out from 7 different companies. He's been juggling debt for years, paying off one credit card with another, staying barely ahead of collections. We also found transfers from 3 different women over the past 4 years, patterns consistent with what we saw with your daughter. We've contacted those women, and 2 of them are willing to cooperate with an investigation. "What happens now?" I asked. "We're building a case for wire fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation. The district attorney is interested in prosecuting. With multiple victims across state lines, the FBI is being consulted about federal charges. This is going to take time, but Ethan Cross is finally going to face consequences. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community, so we can bring more truthful stories for you." The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings, therapy appointments for Lily to process the trauma, and slow, steady healing. Lily moved into a new apartment, one that Ethan had never been to, with better security. She changed her phone number. She scrubbed her social media presence, blocking anyone connected to Ethan. She focused on her design business, which actually began to flourish once she wasn't being undermined constantly. About 2 months after the canceled wedding, Lily and I were having coffee when she said something that surprised me. "Mom, I want to become involved in helping other women who are in situations like I was, victims of financial abuse, people trapped in controlling relationships. I want to use what happened to me to help others." "That's a beautiful idea," I said. "How would you want to do that?" "I've been researching organizations that work with domestic abuse survivors. Financial abuse is a huge component that doesn't get enough attention. I want to volunteer, maybe eventually create resources specifically for women who are being financially exploited. Design materials, create informational campaigns, offer my skills to nonprofits doing this work." Within a month, Lily had connected with 3 different organizations. She designed brochures, websites, and social media campaigns focused on recognizing signs of financial abuse. She spoke at support groups, sharing her story, helping others recognize the patterns she'd missed. She found purpose in her pain, transforming her experience into something that could protect and empower others. As for me, I joined her in this work. My financial expertise was valuable to organizations helping survivors untangle exploitative financial situations. Together, Lily and I would meet with women who were in debt because of abusive partners, helping them understand their legal rights, create safe exit strategies, protect assets, rebuild credit. It was difficult work, often heartbreaking, but also deeply meaningful. The trial for Ethan Cross happened about 7 months after the canceled wedding. By then, prosecutors had built a comprehensive case involving 5 different victims across 3 states. The FBI had indeed gotten involved, bringing federal charges of wire fraud and identity theft. Lily was one of several women who testified. I sat in the courtroom and watched my daughter take the stand. She was nervous. I could see it in the way her hands trembled slightly as she was sworn in. But her voice was steady as she recounted the relationship, the manipulation, the isolation, the financial exploitation. She described finding the notebook with her assets listed, discovering the unauthorized transactions, realizing she'd been targeted from the very beginning. Ethan's defense attorney tried to paint all of the victims as vindictive ex-girlfriends colluding to destroy an innocent man. But the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, forged documents, email trails, testimony from multiple victims with eerily similar stories. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts: wire fraud, identity theft, financial exploitation. Federal charges which carried serious penalties. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for 2 months later. When that day came, I sat beside Lily as the judge delivered the sentence. 7 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. Restitution to all victims, totaling over $200,000. Permanent restraining orders preventing him from contacting any of the victims ever again. As they led Ethan away in handcuffs, he looked back at the courtroom. His eyes found Lily, and for a moment, I saw hatred there. But Lily didn't flinch. She met his gaze steadily, and I realized that my daughter had found a strength she didn't know she possessed. She'd been broken, manipulated, nearly destroyed, but she'd survived, fought back, and now she was watching her abuser face justice. She looked back at Ethan with a calm strength I'd never seen in her before, and then she deliberately turned away. He didn't deserve even a moment more of her attention. Outside the courthouse, several of the other victims who'd testified approached us. Amanda Richardson, the woman whose police report had been part of my initial investigation, hugged Lily. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for being brave enough to fight back. I gave up years ago. I thought he'd just keep getting away with it forever." "We all fought back together," Lily said. "None of us could have done this alone." The women exchanged contact information, creating a support network of survivors who understood exactly what each other had been through. They made plans to meet monthly, to continue supporting each other as they rebuilt their lives. It was beautiful to watch something positive emerge from so much pain. Life gradually returned to a new normal. Lily thrived in her business, landing major clients and expanding her services. She started dating again about a year after the trial, taking things very slowly, being mindful of red flags, trusting her instincts. The first few dates were difficult for her, colored by the trauma of her experience with Ethan. But she persevered, went to therapy, worked through her trust issues. Then, about 18 months after the canceled wedding, Lily met Oliver Chen. He was a librarian at the Portland Central Library, soft-spoken and kind, with a gentle sense of humor and an absolute love for books and learning. Lily met him when she went to research some historical design elements for a client project. He helped her find obscure reference materials. And they ended up talking for 2 hours about art, history, and the evolution of design aesthetics. When Lily mentioned him to me after their first coffee date, I was cautiously optimistic. "Tell me about him," I said. "He's different," Lily said, choosing her words carefully. "He doesn't dominate conversations. He asks questions and actually listens to the answers. He has his own life, his own friends, his own apartment that he's owned for 5 years. He showed me pictures of his book collection. Mom, he has an entire room dedicated to books, organized by topic and era. He's passionate about library sciences and literacy programs. He volunteers teaching adults to read. He's just genuine." "How does he make you feel?" I asked. Lily thought about that. "Safe," she finally said. "He makes me feel safe." I met Oliver a few weeks later when Lily invited him to Sunday brunch, restarting our old tradition that had been interrupted during her relationship with Ethan. Oliver arrived exactly on time, carrying flowers for me and a book he thought I'd enjoy, based on what Lily had told him about my interests. It was a thoughtful gesture that immediately put him in my good graces. Over brunch, I observed him carefully. The way he interacted with Lily was completely different from how Ethan had behaved. When the server asked Lily what she wanted, Oliver stayed quiet, letting her order for herself. When Lily told a story about a difficult client, Oliver listened attentively and asked follow-up questions instead of dismissing her concerns or offering unsolicited advice. When the conversation turned to his job, he talked about his work with genuine enthusiasm, but also asked about mine, showing real interest in accounting and financial planning, even though it wasn't his field. Most tellingly, when I mentioned that Lily and I volunteered together helping financial abuse survivors, Oliver didn't dismiss it or try to change the subject. Instead, he asked thoughtful questions about the work, expressed admiration for what we were doing, and mentioned that the library had resources for people in crisis situations. "We have a partnership with several domestic violence organizations," he said. "We provide a safe space, computer access, and resource information. If there's any way the library could better serve the people you work with, I'd love to discuss that." After he left, I turned to Lily. "I like him." "Really?" Lily looked surprised and pleased. "You're not going to run a background check?" I'd been joking about that exact thing with Patricia the day before, but I looked at my daughter seriously. "Do you want me to?" She thought about it. "Actually, yes. Not because I don't trust him, but because I need to know. I need to be sure." "Is that terrible?" "That's not terrible at all," I said. "That's called learning from experience and protecting yourself. I'll call James tomorrow." James Park ran a complete background check on Oliver Chen, and it came back spotlessly boring. No debt beyond a reasonable mortgage, no criminal history, no ex-girlfriends with restraining orders. Steady employment at the Portland Library System for 8 years. Active in his community. Volunteer work. Verified. The only interesting thing in his background was that he'd taken a year off after college to teach English in rural Japan, which explained his small collection of Japanese literature and his conversational Japanese language skills. NP. He's exactly who he appears to be, James reported. No red flags whatsoever. Your daughter found a good one this time. I shared the results with Lily, who cried with relief. I didn't realize how scared I was, she admitted. Scared that I'd be fooled again, that I couldn't trust my own judgment. But Oliver checked out. I wasn't wrong about him. NP. Their relationship developed slowly and healthily over the next year. Oliver met Lily's friends and integrated into her life without trying to control or limit those friendships. He supported her business, celebrated her successes, and comforted her during difficult projects without making it about himself. When Lily had a panic attack triggered by something random, a credit card statement that momentarily reminded her of Ethan's fraud, Oliver didn't get frustrated or dismiss her trauma. He held her hand, talked her through it, and waited patiently until she was okay. This is what healthy love looks like, Lily told me one evening about a year and a half into their relationship. It's so different from what I had with Ethan. There's no walking on eggshells, no second-guessing myself constantly, no feeling like I have to perform or earn affection. Oliver just loves me for who I am. It's simple and uncomplicated, and it's wonderful. When Oliver proposed, it was quiet and personal. No grand public gesture, no pressure, just the two of them on a hike at Silver Falls, a place Lily loved. He asked her to marry him with a ring he'd carefully selected based on her actual style preferences, not what he thought would look impressive. And crucially, he'd asked me for my blessing first, not as a formality, but because he genuinely wanted to make sure I was comfortable with him marrying my daughter. "Catherine," he'd said when he came to see me a week before the proposal, "I know Lily's been through something traumatic. I know you fought hard to protect her. I want you to know that I see her, really see her, for the amazing person she is. I'm not interested in her money or her connections or anything except her. I have my own career, my own life. I just want to share it with her. And I wanted to ask if you'd be okay with me proposing." I'd looked at this earnest, kind man sitting in my living room and felt overwhelming gratitude that my daughter had found him. "Oliver, I think you're exactly the partner Lily deserves. You have my blessing, and more than that, you have my trust, which is much harder to earn. The wedding was everything Lily's almost marriage to Ethan hadn't been. Small, intimate, held in my backyard under the Japanese maple tree that Marcus had planted when we first moved into this house 29 years ago. Lily wore a simple cream dress instead of an elaborate gown. Hannah, Sophie, and Marissa were her bridesmaids. Oliver's brother and his two best friends from college stood up with him. There were maybe 40 people total, all of them people who genuinely loved and supported the couple. When it came time for Lily to walk down the makeshift aisle, she started alone as planned. But halfway there, she stopped, turned, and extended her hand to me. "Walk with me," she said. I joined her, and together we walked to where Oliver stood waiting, tears in his eyes. It was a moment of healing, of reclaiming something that had been tainted before. During their vows, Lily said something that made everyone cry. "Oliver, you've shown me that real love doesn't isolate, it connects. It doesn't diminish, it amplifies. It doesn't control, it frees. You've taught me to trust myself again, to trust my judgment, to trust that I deserve to be loved exactly as I am. Thank you for your patience, your kindness, and your unwavering support. Thank you for loving me, for loving my mom, for understanding that we're a package deal." Oliver's vows were equally moving. "Lily, you're the strongest person I know. You've been through something that would have broken many people, but instead of becoming bitter or closed off, you've become more compassionate, more empathetic, more determined to help others. You've turned your pain into purpose. I'm honored that you trust me enough to build a life together. I promise to always listen to you, to respect your independence, to support your dreams, and to love you exactly as you are, with no expectations that you be anything other than yourself." The reception was joyful and relaxed, nothing like the elaborate affair that had been planned with Ethan. We ate food from Lily's favorite local restaurants, danced to a playlist Oliver and Lily had created together, and celebrated the genuine love and partnership they'd built. At one point, Amanda Richardson, who'd been invited to the wedding, approached me. "Mrs. Wells, I wanted to thank you," she said. "When Ethan was destroying my life, I didn't have anyone fighting for me. My parents had died years before. I was estranged from my siblings, and I didn't have anyone paying attention enough to see what was happening. Lily is incredibly lucky to have a mother like you." "Lily saved herself," I said. "I just made sure she had the information she needed to make the right choice." "You did more than that," Amanda said. "You didn't give up. Even when she pushed you away, even when it would have been easier to step back and let her make her own mistakes, you fought. That's what love looks like. That's what protection looks like. Because of you, Lily didn't end up like me, spending years trying to rebuild from nothing." Her words stayed with me for a long time. That night, after the wedding, after the guests had left and the yard was cleaned up, Lily and Oliver stayed for a while before leaving for their honeymoon. Lily hugged me tightly. "Mom, I never properly thanked you for saving me. You risked our entire relationship to protect me from someone I couldn't see clearly. You could have lost me forever, but you fought anyway. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen anyone do." "I would do it again in a heartbeat," I said. 1,000 times over. "That's not bravery, sweetheart. That's just being your mother." Life continued to unfold beautifully after that. Lily and Oliver bought a house together, a charming craftsman-style home with a yard perfect for the garden Lily wanted to start. They adopted a rescue dog named Mochi, who became their beloved child before their actual children came along. Lily's business continued to thrive, and she eventually hired 2 employees, expanding beyond just herself. Oliver got a promotion to head librarian and started a city-wide literacy initiative. And then, 2 years after their wedding, Lily called me with news that made my heart soar. "Mom, I'm pregnant." 9 months later, I held my granddaughter for the first time. a perfect little girl with Lily's eyes and Oliver's gentle expression. They named her Catherine Rose Wells Chen. Catherine after me, Rose after Marcus's mother. When Lily placed her in my arms, I felt a sense of completion I hadn't known I was missing. "You're going to be an amazing grandmother," Lily said, watching me cradle her daughter. "And you're an amazing mother," I replied. "Look at this beautiful life you've built. Look at what you've created." As I rocked little Catherine, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The fear, the fight, the determination to protect my daughter, even when it cost me our relationship temporarily. The investigation, the evidence, the confrontation, the canceled wedding, the trial, the justice, and finally the healing, the genuine love, the family that had grown and strengthened through adversity. If I hadn't trusted my instincts about Ethan, if I hadn't hired James, if I hadn't restructured the financial assets, if I hadn't fought, this moment might never have happened. Lily might have been trapped in an abusive marriage, financially exploited, isolated from everyone who loved her. This precious granddaughter might not exist, or if she did, she might have been born into a household filled with manipulation and fear. But I had trusted my instincts. I had fought. And now I was holding my granddaughter while my daughter and her husband built a life filled with love, safety, and genuine partnership. Now my daughter volunteers helping other women escape situations like the one she barely avoided. Now we work together, using our experience to protect others. As for Ethan Cross, he served 6 years of his 7-year sentence before being released on parole. Part of his parole conditions included mandatory therapy, financial management courses, and complete prohibition from romantic relationships until his parole officer deemed him psychologically stable. He was also required to make monthly restitution payments to his victims, payments that would likely continue for the rest of his life, given the amount owed. I heard through Detective Chen that Ethan moved to a different state after his release, working a minimum wage retail job and living in a small apartment. His credit was destroyed. His reputation was ruined. Any background check would immediately flag his criminal history. The con artist, who'd once lived a luxury lifestyle funded by other people's money, now lived paycheck to paycheck, alone with no prospects for advancement. His victims, meanwhile, had all rebuilt their lives, found genuine love, achieved success. We had won, completely and finally. And as I said, looking back now, I understand something fundamental about motherhood that I didn't fully grasp before this experience. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is be willing to be hated temporarily to protect your child permanently. Sometimes you have to fight battles your children don't understand yet. Trust your instincts, even when everyone tells you you're wrong, and refuse to back down, even when it costs you everything you hold dear. End comment. In the context of other intersections, I could have given up when Lily uninvited me from the wedding. I could have accepted the narrative that I was a controlling, jealous mother who couldn't let go. I could have stepped back, told myself she was an adult making her own choices, and waited for the disaster to unfold naturally. But I didn't. I fought. I investigated. I protected assets. I showed up when I wasn't wanted, and yes, I risked losing my daughter forever. But here's what I've learned. When you truly love someone, you don't enable their destruction just to keep the peace. You fight for them, especially when they can't fight for themselves, even if it means they temporarily hate you for it. You trust your instincts when something feels wrong, even when you can't immediately articulate why. You gather evidence, build cases, create paper trails. You protect what can be protected and document what can't be prevented. Now, sitting in my garden, watching Lily push Catherine in a stroller while Oliver reads a book nearby, I feel profound gratitude. Gratitude that I trusted my intuition. Gratitude that I had the resources to hire an investigator and an attorney. Gratitude that Lily eventually saw the truth and found the strength to walk away. gratitude for the life we've all built together in the aftermath. Every hard conversation was worth it. Every sleepless night worrying was worth it. Every moment I thought I might lose her forever was worth it. Because she's here. She's safe. She's loved. She's free. And that precious granddaughter sleeping peacefully in her stroller exists because I refused to let a predator destroy my daughter's future. So I want to ask you, those of you who've listened to my story, what would you have done? Would you have fought, or would you have stepped back? Have you ever had to protect someone from themselves, trust your instincts against everyone else's opinions, risk everything for what you knew was right? Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me your stories. Let's build this community of people who understand that real love sometimes means difficult choices. And remember this, trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't ignore red flags because you want to be polite or because you're afraid of seeming controlling. Manipulation thrives in silence, in accommodation, in people being too afraid to speak uncomfortable truths. Be the person who speaks the truth, even when it's hard. Be the person who shows up, even when you're not wanted. Be the person who documents everything, asks difficult questions, refuses to pretend everything is fine when it clearly isn't. Most importantly, know that if you're in the middle of a situation like this right now, watching someone you love be manipulated, exploited, or isolated, you're not alone. Trust your instincts, gather your evidence, build your support system, protect what can be protected, and never, ever give up on the people you love, even when they've temporarily given up on themselves. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply refuse to abandon someone who's been convinced they're worthless. Your love, your persistence, your unwillingness to give up, it matters. It can save lives. It saved my daughter's life. Not literally, perhaps, but certainly saved the life she was meant to live. And now she's passing that strength forward, helping other women escape the traps she almost fell into. That's the legacy of fighting back. That's the legacy of refusing to give up. Thank you for listening to my story. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. Your support means everything to me, and together we can create a space where these important stories are heard, where people find strength in shared experiences, where truth always finds a way to break through the darkness. Stay strong, trust yourself, protect the people you love, and never underestimate what a mother's instinct combined with determination can accomplish. We are stronger than we know, braver than we think, and more capable than anyone gives us credit for. Use that strength. Trust that courage. Believe in that capability. Because sometimes it's all that stands between the people we love and complete destruction. And finally, to every mother, sister, friend, or loved one watching someone fall under the spell of a manipulator, don't give up. Keep showing up. Keep offering truth. Keep documenting evidence. Keep being the safe place they can return to when the spell finally breaks. Because it will break. Eventually, the mask always slips. The truth always emerges. And when it does, they'll need you there, ready to help them rebuild. Be that person. Be that constant. Be that unconditional love that refuses to abandon them, no matter how hard they push you away. You might not be thanked immediately. You might be hated temporarily. You might lose years of closeness. But when your loved one finally sees the truth and realizes you were protecting them all along, that relationship will be stronger than it ever was before. Built on a foundation of proven love, tested through fire and forged into something unbreakable. That's worth fighting for. That's always worth fighting for. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. Until next time, Stay safe, stay strong, and keep fighting for the people you love.